And welcome back to Scissor Man Warrior. This is another patron roster review. This is Warbringer. Now, Warbringer, he wanted to shout out, of course, Force Canada. What's happening in Force Canada? Disarab, of course, and Bomber Girl. That's pretty awesome. Shout out to both of them as well. And we wanted to talk a little bit about Arena because he kind of falls a little bit from time to time, and can climb, but still falls. Some maybe possible next Zetas. A little bit about ships. He's doing pretty good with the Admiral Akbar lead, and then of course some generalized teams, that synergistic teams that he can kind of take into either territory wars, battles, or Sith raid. So we've done the shout outs. What's up, Disarab and Bomber Girl, and Force Arena, the whole guild, they're awesome. But we are going to go ahead and go into Arena and ships and then the generalized teams to focus on. So for Arena, you're actually picking, of all of the characters you have, probably the best team that you have, and the only reason why it doesn't feel very good right now is because it's the current meta, which is Emperor Palpatine led meta, which is an anti-rebel meta. So you're in the worst case meta out there, and yet you're still doing pretty decent, not too bad. Now you're free to play, and you've been playing for a year. So for free to play, playing for a year, and in the top 100 when you climb is just phenomenal. To be honest, you're really been hyper focused, and I think these little Disarab mini micro warrior roster reviews you've done, or he's done for you in the past, has really helped your focus. You look like you're doing a great job. Now with your inventory, you can make some minor adjustments, and you could tweak this a little bit. You could pull out Chirrut and R2-D2 and put in Biggs and Wedge, because Biggs and Wedge are a really power duo, and the two are going to bring a ton of DPS. That's going to bring you a ton of power, and you don't need R2 as much and Chirrut as much if you're trying to chew through other teams. But I don't think that's the problem. I don't think chewing through other teams is the issue that you're having. I think it's more about dropping on defense. And so with that, you might want to consider CLS Han Solo R2-D2 like you have now, but then do Darth Nihilus and Baze instead of Chirrut and Baze. And I know it seems weird to split Chirrut and Baze up because, they're a match made in heaven, but Darth Nihilus for you is 7 stars, gear 10. He's super tanky, super durable. He's got an instant annihilate, so he's definitely someone that they got to worry about. He's kind of a time bomb, and they've got to figure out what to deal with him. And if they're doing that, then they're not worrying about your Commander Luke and Han Solo, who are now going to be tearing the place up. So it definitely is a huge distraction, where Chirrut's not much of a distraction at all when you're looking at your team. And on top of that, he can do cooldown increases, which is really, really good. And he can dispel any positive buffs on the opponent with his basics. So just a really solid kit, Darth Nihilus is, and you've got him up there. So my suggestion is probably do a simple substitution of Chirrut Imwe out, Darth Nihilus in, and then of course just make sure your R2-D2 is lightning fast, as well as Han Solo over 200 speed and Commander Luke over 200 speed if possible, if you've got those mods, and then have R2-D2 over 250 speed if that's at all possible, with Darth Nihilus being over 200 speed if that's possible as well. Now I know that's a lot to ask from a free-to-play, but that's what I personally would do with your Arena. The rest looks pretty good. And as far as ships Arena goes, you're actually doing really well. It looks like you probably took a little advice from either myself or from Disarab on your fleet, and you went with Admiral Akbar, and then you've got a couple of target lockers with Biggs. And so we're looking at your inventory, and when I scroll through your inventory, I do see there's quite a few, pretty good ships throughout. You've got some ships that other people don't necessarily have. And so I would actually run Biggs like you're running underneath Admiral Akbar. And I would do the TIE Advance, which is your, Darth Vader ship, and your Imperial TIE Fighter. So the first 3 that you're running really look great. And to be honest, the only thing you need to do for them is just continue to farm up and max out your crew members on gear, because that's going to make a huge impact on ships. And then in the back, I would actually probably have Slave 1 for durability in the back slot. He's going to taunt now and have critical hit immunity and do AoEs and target locks. And you're probably already using him because it looks like you've put 1 piece into the reinforcements. So that's good. I would also have Poe Dameron and his X-Wing, this is a phenomenal ship coming out of the reinforcements. You really need to max his reinforcement, his dramatic entrance. You need to get the reinforcement pieces put into this so that way he comes in and blasts fools hardcore. You definitely want to do that. Sunfac also is a great secondary tank to have come in off the bench and really help. Now, I know your Sunfac looks pretty pathetic. I would slap a favorites tab on him, throw him in your favorites, and have him as a side project, as something that you continue to develop. The good news is it's a tank, so it already starts to be tanky, but you would want to obviously work on the reinforcement abilities, which is really cool. He comes in from being out and he stuns somebody, and then with his ability he can stun somebody. So you're going to be able to bring him in off the bench and stun 2 people, literally 2 people. This is pretty awesome. So I would highly recommend him in the background as well. And then also when I was looking, I noticed that you had Cassian up here, and I know the characters, there's 3 of them and you've got to gear them up for him, but they are Rogue One, and if you get these 3 characters for Rogue One up, it's only going to help you in territory battles light side. So it's super important that you focus on these characters as well. Slap favorites on them, work them as side projects for this particular ship. But Cassian's U-Wing will help strip all of the crazy buffing that's going on the opposing side, so you can bring him in exactly when you need to, strip all of the buffs, and then just eliminate the opposing team. So really, like I said, I would use Biggs, TIE Advanced, Imperial TIE Fighter like you have been, and then Slave 1, Poe Dameron's X-Wing, Sunfac's Starfighter, and then Cassian's U-Wing as your backup ships. The rest of the ships you can continue to develop kind of passively as you have time, but the lineup I gave you is probably going to be the best lineup with what you have to what you are going against. Now, obviously, for me personally, I like Biston's U-Wing over the Imperial TIE Fighter, but I know for you, your Imperial TIE Fighter is in far better shape, and we don't want to have you drop too far in ship's arena. And if you need to make any substitutions because a ship I suggested is a little too low, for example, I suggested Poe Dameron's X-Wing, and we know you have some work to go for sure, you can always just look up higher up here and look for a reinforcement that might have a little bit more bite, such as TIE Reaper. As of right now, this TIE Reaper might do a little better than Poe in the moment because your Poe Dameron has some issues, but you also might have some of these abilities to just max out once you get your roster review, and hopefully you have a little bit of that. So that's what I would do for that. Remember, the crew members need to go up for the abilities to go up, and for the health and speed of the ships and all of that to go up. So you've got to focus on all of your pilots, and obviously ships that have 3 pilots are harder to focus on instead of ships that have, for example, 1 pilot. So anyway, long story short, your ships look pretty good, and it sounds like you've got your head screwed on really straight for that. Now let's go ahead and focus on a couple of teams and characters I think that you should probably focus on. Now, the first thing I did is I went in to look to see if you had Jedi Training Rey, and you didn't, and I know she's coming, and so I looked at all of your characters, and you have everything you need except you have a 5-star veteran smuggler. You are going to be running like nobody runs before, and sadly, because you're free to play, you very well might not make it. You do have about a full week or whatever to try and get him geared up, or start up, but to get him up to 7 stars in a week is pretty unlikely unless you decide to dolphin out and buy the little pack that they send you that has 50, but definitely you're going to have to continue to try and work on veteran smugglers. And if you don't get him Jedi Training Rey this time, she'll probably be back in a couple of months. My guess is 2 or 3 months, and you'll be able to get her then. But definitely this should be your #1 priority for getting stars and then gearing up those characters so you can get Jedi Training Rey. So definitely for that. And then you should be able, when BB-8 comes out, be able to get him to 7 stars. So that way you can finish that aspect of getting Jedi Training Rey done. Plus you'll be able to start working on BB-8. Remember, BB-8 is a amazing standalone character. You do not have to have anybody else next to him. Him by himself is phenomenal. So he's one of those characters, kind of like Thrawn, you're just going to want to level up as soon as you get to 7 stars. And you have your BB-8 to 5, but you should, with what your lineup looks like here, be able to get him to 7 stars when his event comes around, which is now basically. And then when I'm looking here at First Order, by the way, I am noticing that you have a really decent First Order team. This is like a really good start to a First Order team. It would be your entire top line minus Captain Phasma, but I would do First Order Officer, Stormtrooper, Kylo Unmasked, and First Order TIE Pilot. And I would go ahead and Zeta your Gear 10 Kylo Ren Unmasked, and that is going to make this team go from meh to amazing, both in territory wars, battles, and you'll be able to use it in the raids. So this is one of those teams that you can use in all the areas of the game, and because of that, the Zeta on Kylo Ren Unmasked will never be wasted. And if you had to pick one Zeta for this team, Kylo Ren Unmasked's lead is the one you would want to pick. So that's one of the Zetas I am going to recommend for you to focus on. Just like I mentioned BB-8, and you need to go ahead and gear up BB-8. I noticed that you have Gear 8 Grand Admiral Thrawn, 7 stars. You're going to want to continue to develop him as a side project for sure. Just like BB-8, you're going to want to continue to develop. These are just those few overpowered characters that work everywhere in the game, in every raid, in every PvP and PvE, and they give you flexibility in arena, and so you absolutely must put this in your favorites and just keep it there until he's completely maxed out. Grand Admiral Thrawn is amazing. Same would be true with BB-8. I would definitely recommend continuing to develop BB-8, and when the day comes that you get Jedi Training Rey, I would definitely Zeta the Roll with the Punches. That's an excellent Zeta. That one's really the only one BB-8 I would say needs. The other one, Self-Preservation Protocol, is not needed whatsoever. And I had gone through all your light side factions, and they actually all look really good. Like I said, Resistance is missing your Jedi Training Rey, and you got some gearing to do on some of those characters, but for free to play, your light side looks pretty good, especially your Rebels. But I did notice First Order and Nightsisters are going to be your best 2 bangs for your bucks on the dark side, because you know your Empire and Sith look pretty decent already. And so we already talked about First Order, so we're now going to talk about Nightsisters. So my suggestion would be obviously First Order, get your Kylo Ren Unmasked, Zeta, and then as another team that I would tell you to focus on, it would be Nightsisters. And the reason is they're the highest damage dealing team for the Sith raid, and they're going to work really well in Darkside territory battles and helping you really be a team player in Darkside territory battles. And you can even use them in arena if you want at certain times, if you have certain teams you're struggling with. So definitely you'll want to use these guys, but that's where another Zeta comes into play. At a minimum, you're going to have to Zeta her leadership ability. Her unique rampage is good, especially in raids, and so I would definitely Zeta her leadership at a minimum, and the entire faction becomes viable. But then if you get a chance for a future Zeta, the rampage would be a great Zeta. Also Mother Talzin Zeta as well. So the team that you would want to eventually focus on. Now, side note, you're going to be gearing up First Order and some side projects, which means you also need to be focused on farming for stars for certain characters in Cantina and hard nodes, and that's where this team comes into play. You don't have to farm the gear for this characters, just farm the stars for now, and you definitely want to get Old Daka. She's easy to farm out of the store, and then Mother Talzin is going to be tough, Zombie, and then Asajj Ventress. And in my opinion, I would use Talia. She works the best for the Sith raid or any other PvE content because of her health gaining and health stealing and stuff. And so that's really the direction that I would go, is focused on farming Talia's last 2 stars, Zombie's last 3 stars, Mother Talzin's last 4 stars, and Old Daka's last 3 stars. And do all of this either at the same time as First Order, or worry about First Order gear first and then get the rest of these guys. But some of these guys, like I said, Old Daka, you can get her. You don't even have to use energy to acquire her through the store. So definitely some of these you just want to start to level up. But Nightsisters are going to help you in every area of the game, and in the raid is going to be a team that you're going to go in and really be able to put up really big damage numbers in the Sith raid, and I know that's important to you. So I know that you guys aren't quite to the heroic level yet, but you're getting there. It's going to take teams like this to be able to acquire that. So like I said, your arena looks good. I would probably put in Darth Nihilus over Chirrut, and or you could possibly put in Biggs and Wedge in place of R2-D2 and Chirrut, but really I would probably just Darth Nihilus in place of Chirrut. As far as your ships, your top looks great. I would just focus on those reinforcements, making sure that you do the basic Omegas and the reinforcement abilities on your 4 reinforcement ships, as well as the basics on your initial 3 lineup. Keep working on those crew members for that, and then of course focus on your First Order and then Nightsisters, and on the side, remember your Smuggler Chewie. You got to get him up, and make sure you're gearing up your Thrawn and your BB-8 to, you know, gear 11, gear 12. Those are amazing characters in the game. As always, if anyone has any thoughts or comments, leave them down below, and keep your gaming on. Warrior out.